Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar, What's New in version 17, DTools SI. We appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy day, and we're excited to demonstrate some of the new capabilities of our flagship product, System Integrator version 17. I'm Tim Bagonis, CMO here at DTools, and joining me today are Randy Stearns, our CEO, and Seth Enos, Product Manager for System Integrator. If you haven't done a webinar before with us, welcome. We're glad to have you. It's very basic and easy. We'll be presenting through this window, and you have a control panel there where you can ask some questions, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. If you need more viewing room, you can click the arrow in the top of your control panel, and that will give you some more visual space. So what we'll cover today is we'll provide a brief overview of DTools and our product System Integrator. Randy Stearns will do an overview of the new features and capabilities, and then we'll pass it to Seth Enos, who will do a demonstration of these new capabilities. We will be doing dedicated Q&A at the end of the session, but as we're going through the presentation, if you have questions, please go ahead and add them to the questions window. We'll answer what we can during the presentation, and if the question is not answered, don't worry, we'll go through it at the end. This webinar will be recorded and available to be distributed to all who have registered, and you can forward to members of your team when we're done. Okay, so some background on DTools for those of you who may not be familiar. We were founded in 1998 by Adam Stone, who was himself a systems integrator and pioneered a process of tying his bill of materials to the drawings he was doing for his projects. He did this to help his own processes and work, and realized that he had a solution that really could benefit other companies in the industry. We premiered at CEDIA in 1998, and we have steadily grown from residential AV through commercial AV to some commercial security, and now working with building automation systems and other industries. We've grown to over 7,000 companies who use our solution in over 90 countries. We're dedicated to always improving the platform, as our industry has honored us with a number of awards. And our entire team is really focused on making sure that our customers realize long-term success from our solution. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce Randy Stearns, our CEO, and he's going to provide you with an overview of our solution as well as the new features that are coming out in this new version. Randy?
Thank you, Tim, and welcome everybody. It's rare I get the opportunity to speak to so many of our customers, so I want to first take an opportunity to thank you all for your undying support of DTools and its products. It means the world to us, and I hope we're serving you well. I know our team works very hard to keep the product up to date and moving forward and support our customer base. I think the good news right now in this economy is that you're all doing fairly well. I know there are challenges with the labor shortage and supply chain delays, and I can't help you with those, but what I and my team can help you with is increasing your project throughput by improving the output of your current team, and if done successfully, I think we can increase your project throughput by 10 to 25% simply by exploiting the power of DTools, and if there's an opportunity to help you do that, we'd like to get involved in supporting you. Before I get into what's new in version 17, I want to share some of the thoughts and ideas that we have for how you can create more efficiencies and greater productivity through the use of System Integrator. So SI is an end-to-end solution. It's built precisely for what you do every day. But unfortunately, a lot of our customers don't use the software as full functionality. It's kind of, in some cases, it's kind of like using Excel as a calculator. So some of the ideas for improving productivity and operating efficiency, start with the catalog, our product catalog. Instead of building it from scratch and maintaining it manually, dTools provides in-depth product information for nearly 1 million products, complete with all the basic product info, along with product category, phase, estimated labor time, and more. We provide engineering specs like dimensions and IOs, and even AutoCAD blocks and Visio shapes to help you expedite the development of your drawings. Also, for those who aren't taking advantage of it yet, we now deliver dealer-specific pricing. That's your pricing for over 250,000 products flowing directly into your software. That saves you a lot of time in your catalog management, but probably as or more importantly, make sure your estimates are accurate. Speaking of estimating, there are a lot of time-saving features that we've built into SI, starting with cloning, templates, packages, accessories, all with integrated wire and labor calculations, making your proposal generation a snap. Of course, you can also use snippets and document templates to expedite the completion of other proposal sections. With regards to engineering, besides the Visio shapes and AutoCAD blocks, as you know, as you generate a drawing, you're also auto-generating the bill of materials, so killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and you can save a lot of time through that process. Our change orders are auto-generated whenever you make a modification to a drawing or the bill of materials. Purchase orders can be created in batch by phase and or by location. For example, if you want to order all the materials for all the trim materials for the lower level at one time, you can, creating great efficiencies in the ordering process. We released a feature last year that I love, maybe it was earlier this year, I forget, called checklists, and this is going to help your project management process substantially. Checklists allow you to create a workflow template of tasks that need to be completed as you go through to complete a project or a certain type of project. You can take that checklist and flow it right into your Gantt chart, another newish feature of SI, and then build out the Gantt chart for project planning and management. And then the tasks in the Gantt chart can be pushed right to your technicians as installation tasks to be completed on the job. And this flow of tasks from checklists to Gantt chart to mobile install for completion by technicians creates a kind of a systemization, if you will, of the project planning and implementation process, and tremendous efficiencies and accuracy in how you go about that process. On the field management side, most of you who have been around the industry for a while and know that when you give your technicians a specific list of tasks to complete in a given day or a week, they're going to be a lot more productive and they're going to complete a lot more work than if you just send them out to the job to work, right? We give you the tools for doing that, and we also give them the tools to enter their time, to enter site notes, site photos, IP addresses, serial numbers, etc., all through mobile install, and that's recorded as a permanent record in the project file. So great field office communication tools available to you through mobile install. Then lastly, we've got several integrations with QuickBooks and other accounting solutions, inventory management systems, etc., that eliminate double data entry and reduce the risk of human error, again, saving you time. And these are just a few examples of ways to streamline your project workflow and hopefully reduce the number of people that you might be looking to hire. We found that people that use SI in its entirety can improve operational efficiency in significant ways, and in that process, significantly improve the bottom line results. So turning to version 17, we're really excited about this release, and we're focused on adding critical new business management tools that help you run a better business. That starts with a complete timekeeping module. And in the past, as many of you may have experienced, we've offered project-based time tracking for technicians only. But now all employees can track all their time, regardless of whether it's billable, like project time or service work, non-billable, like training or PTO, and even overtime. The timesheet data, once reviewed and approved by a supervisor, can be exported for payroll purposes. And we also allow administrators to enter employee pay rates, whether that's hourly or salaried. You can include burden, and that will allow you to get very accurate job costing data out of SI. With that information, with job costing information, you can track how you're doing on projects, budget versus actual, on labor cost, labor hours, and equipment and material costs, right? So you'd always know whether you're under budget, on budget, or over budget, and we even give you the ability to look at it by phase. In other words, how am I doing or how did I do on my pre-wire? The other thing that job costing or timekeeping enables us to do is report on labor utilization. In other words, the number of hours that was billable to projects versus the number of hours someone was paid for. So how effectively or efficiently am I using our labor resources? You can look at that by individual or by department. So labor utilization reporting is now built in as a standard view. Taken one step further, with job costing, you have the ability to calculate revenues that have been earned and then in turn can be recognized on a project by project basis. So if you're trying to figure out what revenues to recognize in a given month on a project by project, we give you the tools to do that. And with knowing what revenues have been recognized on a project, you also know the backlog of that project. So we also provide you with a backlog report that tells you what your backlog is across projects. So some really powerful business analytic reports that will give you an instant understanding of project status, team performance, and also the information you need to make better decisions and run your business in a more efficient and more profitable way. I look forward to having Seth show you those capabilities, but first let me touch on a few other enhancements that you've requested and we have delivered on in version 17. We've made some catalog enhancements. Chances are many of you have experienced a situation where the manufacturer name on a price list that you import doesn't match the manufacturer name in our library, so you have to correct it manually. That problem has been resolved. We now give you aliases that you can enter on a manufacturer by manufacturer basis. For example, Crestron and Crestron Inc. and Crestron Electronics, so that the data matches up correctly every time. It prevents errors and redundancies and makes it substantially easier to merge data from multiple data sources. And of course, will save you time in your catalog management. We made a similar improvement when it comes to phase names that are hard-coded into SI, like rough-in, you may call it pre-wire, right, or final and finish. And so now you have the ability to map those labor phase names that you want to use with the ones that are coded into DTools, and that eliminates that problem once and for all. We have next completely overhauled our component ID features so that you now have the flexibility to develop or comply with any component ID schema that you like. You can choose the number and length of the parts and the separators that you want to use and essentially create your own labeling nomenclature or match a standard like that that's been developed by Avixa. With this new flexible formatting of the component ID labels, you can apply it to every entity within the software, like wires, products, packages, labor items, etc. And Seth will show you that in just a minute. Lastly, we've made improvements in a number of other areas of the software. We've made improvements on the Gantt chart, scope of work fields. You've had one scope of work field in the past that you normally use as kind of a client-facing scope of work, but there's been requests to develop a scope of work for programmers and for technicians, and now you can do that. We've created new custom fields that are hyperlinks, so you can gain immediate access to web pages, product information, project documentation, and the like, just by entering hyperlinks into these fields. And we've also added some new AutoCAD templates. These are not all of the capabilities we've included with version 17, but most of the significant ones. And so with that, again, thank you all for being here and for your support. And I'll turn it over to Seth Enos, our SI product manager, to demonstrate these new capabilities.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Tim. Welcome, everyone. In this webinar, I'm going to go through the new features for what's new in v17. The major one that we added in this release, the major feature, are timesheets. And as Randy mentioned previously, you get a lot of reporting based on timesheets. So we're going to start there with the big feature, and then we'll go into some of the other ones. But before I show you our Timesheet Explorer and entering timesheets, I want to talk a little bit about your setup for this. So we'll go to the control panel, and I'm going to just open a user to show you the cost per hour essentially is what it will boil down to, but I'll show you the fields that we added. We've historically had a cost per hour for resources. Now it's permission based who sees this information. So you can give somebody the ability to create users, but not enter this information as it is sensitive. You might have to, have that one person in your company that can go in and enter these actual rates in here. So let's go ahead and open a user here. And we'll take a look at the new field. So what we did is we expanded the capabilities here quite a bit, rather than just entering in this case, this is what we had before, the hourly wage, essentially the cost per hour. You could put that in there. Now we've given you the ability to enter an annual salary versus an hourly wage if you'd like. And what you'll see down here is the formula that we're using, which is basically 280 equals 52 weeks per year times 40 hours per week. We just explain that so you know where the math is coming from. But you can certainly enter a value in here, and it will come up with a burdened labor cost. This is the ultimate field here because you have the option of adding a burden, which is a percentage here. If you want to add a 10% or a 20% burden for overhead, it's not what you're paying this person per hour or annually necessarily what they see. It's what's all the extra stuff to have this person as an employee. So if you're running your business, hopefully you know that number, or you have some sort of average there to add that weighted or burdened labor cost. I'm going to leave this particular user alone here at the hourly for now, but we made these changes. We also added the ability to mark a user as overtime exempt, because we added, it's not our concept, but we added the concept of overtime to our timesheet functionality here. And if they are annual, for instance, and they're not eligible for overtime, the overtime would just be ignored then when approving their timesheets. So you do have that option. So before I move on from here, I just want to show you also for timesheets that we do have a bunch of new permissions for those, as you can see here. I'm just going to expand this as an administrator, but I'll scroll down so you can see the ability to view, create, modify, delete, approve, unapprove, manage, edit overtime settings. All of that can be limited per user here. So just keep that in mind that we've added that. And again, remember there is a permission out here on who can see those costs. Remember that as an important one to note. I'm sure you all know about that one, but now it'll become even more prevalent with this extra reporting that's available to you. So again, maybe before I leave here, I'll just tell you really quickly, the timesheet settings is just an overtime multiplier. In this case, the default is 1.5. You can change that, and you can, whoever has this permission to change this can, and you can do it on a on the fly basis. If there's a certain project where the overtime is going to be different, if it's 2 times the amount for that particular day, you can change that and approve those timesheets, assuming you have those permissions. Okay, so timesheets, where do they live? Here we go. here is the Timesheet Explorer. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. We have a bunch of timesheets out here that I've set up as examples. Now, what this gives you the ability to do is enter timesheets directly in SI, and some of you may be doing that. If you're a programmer, you may not have a task assigned to you, and you may not be out in the field. It may be happening in-house, or a project manager, for instance. They may be doing everything here. So there's people associated with the project that won't necessarily be using mobile install, where we feel that's where a lot of these timesheets are going to come from. When you create a task in a service order and you assign it to your technicians, they're going to be filling out timesheets in the field. You used to be able to enter just an actual hours for their time out in the field. Now we require a timesheet. You still can enter just hours. You don't have to put a time in, time out. That's an option, but you will be using timesheets moving forward if you're going to be tracking actual hours inside of SI. So the ones that come down from mobile install, you can see with the little icon over here, and a lot of these obviously will be that. So we have 4 types of timesheets. We have project timesheets, just a timesheet specifically to a project. Task timesheets, which are definitely associated with a project as well, but they also happen to be associated with a task. And you'll see those within the task and service order editors, and service order timesheets, which I just mentioned. And then this one, which is a little bit different down here, a company timesheet. And company timesheets are non-billable. They cannot be marked as billable, and this would be for your training or PTO. You can add in a company timesheet. They won't be marked as billable, and that's how we're going to track your labor utilization for billable versus non-billable. Now, on any one of these other timesheets, your time entries can be non-billable as well. It's just by default they are billable. Just keep that in mind. Real quickly, I'm going to pull up just a project timesheet. This is our new project selector that we've added throughout SI versus the tree format that we had before. We found this one to be a little bit better and more flexible with the filtering here. So I'll just select a project to give you an example here. And this will open up a form. And here we go. Starts with today's date. Of course, you can change that. You can pick a resource from this list. And then you choose whether you want to enter a duration entry or a time in, time out entry. And obviously, if it's duration, you're just going to be entering a number here. Time in, time out, you're going to be required to enter those, which will then calculate your duration. Now, you can have multiple entries per timesheet. There could be, say, a billable and a non-billable entry here, or they could both be billable, but there were different times of time in and time out. And now, again, I want to stress, most of your timesheets will probably be syncing down from mobile install, where they have these exact same options, and I'm going to take you there and show you that. So that's the basic. Let me scroll over to you. You can also add a description here for these if you want and mark them as overtime. Now, being able to mark overtime, again, is a permission-based function, and you may not be doing this at this point. That may happen when you are approving, or someone is approving these timesheets. All timesheets are pending until they are approved. So now let's go to mobile install very quickly here. Let me take you out here, and we'll go to mobile install. So here I've got a one entry done here for one of the technicians, and I'm just going to show you here. Now, this timesheets have existed out in mobile install in the past, but we made some slight changes to these. But the biggest difference is they now synchronize back down to SI. Prior to this, just the hour value came down, but whatever the total was. Now we're actually pulling down the timesheets themselves because we have that entity inside of SI. So what we've done here is just a slight change here to more match SI with being able to choose with a radio button whether it's a duration entry or a time in, time out entry. So you have those options. We had something similar to this before, but this is a little cleaner. And we added phases out here. So phases will synchronize from SI out to the tasks and service orders. For tasks, they'll pull not only the project phases if they are project specific, and also the global list out here. So you can choose a phase, or your technicians can assign a phase. So phases are pretty important for the granularity of our reporting that you're about to see, whether it be labor utilization, job costs, backlog, or revenue recognition. Phases can give you a better breakdown on a lot of those views. So we were not going to require this, but we recommend it. You'll see I'm going to leave this one blank intentionally, and we'll create a time entry here for 6.5 hours. We'll do like that. We'll add this here. And then let's go back to SI and my Timesheet Explorer here. And I'm going to go ahead and update from mobile install since I already have this interface open. Okay, so we have one entry that came in. There we go. So we have 2 timesheets, but 1 task basically that was updated here. Now, I just want you to know you don't have to push this button all the time. Each time you open the Timesheet Explorer or resource hours or task explorer, we synchronize down from mobile install automatically in the background. But since I had this interface open, that's what that was. So you notice these 2 are not approved. That's this checkbox here. And this one is giving a flag here because it's missing a phase. As I mentioned, when approving timesheets, you will be able to choose a phase, but we're not going to force you to do that. But I'm going to do it to have good practice here. So I'm going to select these 2. But let me also explain something else here too. The filtering before I do that. I can easily see that these ones aren't approved, but we do have a quick filter here where you can easily see all just your approved ones or ones that aren't approved. You can also filter by what entity the timesheets are for, not to mention filtering by date range, resource, and project, should you choose to do so. So you can really get down to this list and just see what happened this week or last week, your choice. Since I have these already selected, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight those and hit mark as approved. Keep in mind, again, this is permission-based, whether you can do this. And here we go. We pull this over to this screen. So here we have 2 timesheets listed here, and there's one. There's the other one that you can see in this list here. And this one has the unassigned phase. So we flag it here each time. And if you try to mark as approved, we're going to say, hey, you're missing a phase. Are you sure? So before I go down that road, I'm just going to go ahead and say that this was probably, we'll say that was trim out, since I can't remember. So I'm going to mark it as trim. Oh yeah, trim. So we've marked this now. The flag is taken away, and we can just mark these as approved. And now these hours have been added to the total actual hours for that project. And I say project because it is associated with a project on that task. So again, you can create them here inside of SI, the timesheets. You can they'll automatically synchronize from your mobile install tasks and service orders. You can also import timesheets here from some other system if you're using that for timekeeping. If that system has an export, we've built an import here where you'll be able to map to our fields, whatever fields you have in your spreadsheet. During the import, we're going to make you pick of course, a resource that exists in SI. So there'll be some mapping that you'll do and some mass updating, but it's a great little feature there. You can also export. If you want to keep the time here and then export these out for whatever reason. You might just want these in an Excel spreadsheet to do some math on. You might want to import these into another software. So we give you a CSV export and import besides manually entering those here in the Timesheet Explorer. Okay, so that's a little bit about timesheets here. Now, what we're getting from timesheets, again, are the actual hours. So you have the estimated hours from your project, hopefully an approved project. That's what we estimated them to be. Now we're tracking the actual. And because we track billable versus non-billable, as we showed and explained earlier, you can get your labor utilization report. So I'll just go ahead and click that. And it runs. Now this is showing for the last 30 days by default, but here's in your list, we've added some common ones you might want to view by, as well as the ability to create a custom one if you want it in the future. These are all in the past here. Like here's the last 2 weeks, we changed that, the number slightly changed versus the overall. But what we show here, again, are the billable versus the non-billable hours and total hours, your utilization for this date range, and then the utilization year to date. That will always display here. So this utilization will vary based on your filter over here. And you may have noticed that they are grouped by role. And if you didn't, I'll tell you, they're grouped by role. So here's designers, project managers, technicians, and that's part of your user setup. So we've had roles for a long time in SI. They have nothing to do with permissions. They've always just been kind of a designator for your employees and staff. But lately we've been using them a lot more. When we added the business analytics a few releases ago, roles became more important there for getting those insights into how your business is running. Same here. We group by roles and then we list the people. Now, you can get even more granular here, and we'll show you by phase. That's another reason I mentioned phases earlier being important, which phases really are, your labor rates inside of SI. So you can build that list out to include, training and PTO and have those names out there. Whether or not there's any dollar values associated with those, that's up to you. The point being is we're tracking the actual based on the name that you give it here. One thing to note about all of these new views, and when I say all, you've only seen one so far, this one. We're going to show you the job costing reporting in just a minute here, but they all can be exported to Excel or PDF. So this view, you can then again, if you export it to Excel, again, you can do what you want with it. In fact, I've got an example here. I exported out the technicians earlier, just a quick little view here of how it displays in Excel, and you'll notice the little plus signs over here. So if I expand that, that's when you'll see the phase breakdown. So you have that option. And if you want to, you can even create a chart based off of this. I just did a quick one here, and there you go. That's my labor utilization so far for this export. So really powerful tools, obviously. So it's not a CSV file, it is Excel to be able to do that fun stuff. Okay. So that is labor utilization. And now I'm going to move over to the other reporting that really stemmed off of us getting those true actual hours inside of SI for projects. So we'll go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go back to the main interface here. Timesheet Explorer is its own window there. And I'm going to move over to projects here. And I'll select... We'll go this one and we'll choose this one. And it's all run for a couple projects, but prior to running these reports and views, of course, you could filter here and find where are my, projects that are won and, active. Which ones do I want to view? And select here and then come up here to your ribbon. And we have a little drop down here where we have 3 different job costing style reports. One right off the bat, job cost, revenue, and backlog. Let's go through these. So I'm going to do the job cost. There we go. And as you can see, the first one displays expanded, showing you the phases for that project. I'm going to collapse that for now, just to make this easier to read. There's the 2 projects I selected, and I am going to auto-fit these columns. So on this screen, I'm seeing quite a few of them. It'll depend on your monitor, of course. But what you're seeing per project, I just want to walk you through here. You're seeing a project percent complete. Now, that's the overall project percent complete based on costs, recognized costs, the actual costs coming from those actual hours from timesheets, as well as actual product cost. So I want to talk about that in just a second, but I do want to show you that there are 3 sections out here, I should say, with 4 fields in each. We are showing you the budgeted product cost, the actual product cost, the product cost variance, and the product percent complete. That's what you're seeing here. Then we do the same for labor cost and then labor hours. Now, if hours don't matter to you in this view, some of you may not care that. We just did some quick layouts here where you can pick and choose if you just want to see just products. If you just want to see, well, just hours for some reason, or you can see all. Once again, this is exportable out to Excel and PDF before I forget to say that. But this view here, again, can be expanded should you choose to see a phase breakdown. You may not need that sort of granularity, but if you want to see it, it's there. Here you can see the hours percent complete, which is up here for the major project or the main project, but I have to scroll over for you to see that. What I want to talk to you about is where some of these values are coming from, number one. So we have all the formulas for you available out in our documentation site, like this project percent complete, for instance. You're going to see that in the next views too. So I'm going to just take a quick segue away from this and go back here to our documentation site. Hopefully all of you know about this. I published this today, the v17 documentation. So of course you can search out here and get down and see these formulas. I'm going to show you the formulas in a second, but while I'm here, the administration guide, as always, contains the SI v17 release notes. Click on that. So again, we should begin releasing this tomorrow. So I put that as a little note here, and we're going to do a rollout as we usually do. But just if anybody wants to read all these release notes today, you certainly can. That's how you get there. Back to my example of why I brought you here is the formulas. Here you can see the job cost page where we tell you about, groups and permissions, then a bit about it. Here you can see we have your product percent complete, where this is all coming from, and all of the other calculations that you're going to see in these views. All right. Having said that, that's one calculation there. The other thing I want to talk about is this actual labor cost is coming from approved timesheets. I think I already said that, but where's this actual product cost coming from? That's going to be up to you. So and what we mean by that is it's going to be up to you to decide when you're going to recognize those costs for products. And we've given you 4 settings. Here they are. The job cost settings is job cost, equipment, and materials once an item is installed, picked, received, or ordered. And depending on how you run your company, where you are in the US or the world, you may have different reasons or requirements for this on when you're actually recognizing a cost for a product for equipment and materials. I've left mine set at installed, but of course you can change this to fit your needs. So mine is all based off of that installed date and field for all the products within a project. But just know that that is an option that you will have to think about and set, and don't worry, you can change it anytime. We'll just read the values as you change it, and you'll see numbers change, absolutely. So that is our product or project job cost view. With these same 2 projects selected, I'm going to go ahead and show you a revenue report here. So we'll do this. Let me expand this full screen for you. This is a simple view. I only have a few projects selected here. So what you're seeing here is, once again, the product percent complete. That's always important to note when you're looking at this. And again, the formula is out there based on your recognized costs. But what we have here ultimately is the revenue earned. And that is, again, based off of actual labor costs, actual product costs versus your budgeted. So this is the revenue earned to date, or the revenue that you would recognize based on your job cost settings here. Now, we also have the kind of the inverse view of this, which is your backlog. So this is what has been recognized so far on this project based off of this total project price. Essentially, this minus this number gives you the backlog number. But we have a separate interface for this. This one is important because you can filter this to see, again, the revenue earned for a specific date range. That's important when you're looking and considering revenue earned. For backlog, it's since the project's inception. So it's a very similar view here. You're just not going to see filters. So you'll see here. Let's go to backlog. And again, we've took away the filters here, and that number is the inverse of the other one. So this is the revenue yet to be recognized for this project. So that gives you some really great business insight that was not always possible. We've had users over the years try to make this work for them and try to get job costing reports out of our software, and with varying success. It all depends on the data you had at that time and which custom fields you were going to use to try to force this to work. But the main problem we had back then is really that time and tracking time was only on tasks and service orders. We really had a way to add other non-billable hours or billable hours to a project directly. So Timesheets gave us that capability. So we have all of these nice new reports and views for you. All of them, again, can be exported to Excel or PDF. So, okay. Hopefully everyone's clear on that and good on that. I'm sure there's questions coming in about, do we integrate to QuickBooks Time or what formerly known as T-Sheets? I will just right up front say not yet. It's something we are looking at, though, when we did do some research on. Didn't make it in our time frame for this release, but now that we've, I would say, pretty much nailed down timesheets, we're going to go ahead and revisit that for a future update, which will be great. So you'll be able to import directly from QuickBooks Time into SI. So we have the values in here and can give you all of this great job costing report and labor utilization reporting. Okay, we'll move on now. No timesheets, no job costing. Let's show for our engineers in the crowd and our designers, the component ID revamp, we'll call it. Let's talk about that. So this has been a long time coming. But for years, we've been very rigid on our component ID format. And for some reason, we just made our rules a long time ago and didn't want to change them. And I know this is very important to a lot of you. And for those of you that don't know, the component ID is a unique identifier that gets assigned to every product that is added to a project. If you're just doing quoting out of our software, you probably never notice these things, this number, but it's a unique identifier. It displays on our drawings, on all of our shapes. We show that this is how you can, match that item up with exactly what it is. It's this particular amplifier in this particular rack. It identifies not only that, but also wire labels come from this. A wire is assigned a component ID, which is essentially its wire number inside of SI. So let's go ahead and open this up. And I'm just going to first talk about the, hold on, I think it's opening still. There it goes. So this is a new component ID format. Currently in SI, prior to v17, you could only set this for 3 different things: product, wire, or packages. Those were the 3 options in here. Now, which meant that labor items just assumed the same ID as products. As you can see over here, we broke this out for every entity in SI and then a little bit further. So products have their own, labor have their own. We differentiated now between finished wire or bulk wire, wire that's coming out of a box versus a cable that's pre-terminated if you want a different format. Now, you don't have to, and you can copy values from one to the other to save yourself time. But we also broke out our packages into their 4 entities: package, allowance, bundled cable, and solutions that we introduced a few releases ago. So a lot more flexibility here, but that's not the big thing, everyone. The cool thing here, the great thing is, prior to this release, there used to be a separator value here. So separator, and you would pick one separator, and that separator applied to every single item that you add to this list. It would be the separator that separated category between subcategory and whatever you pick here, whatever custom fields, right? Or manufacturer name. You didn't have a choice to vary that. And a lot of standards or requirements for, say, wire numbering that our users have run across over the years, that doesn't fly. You have to have a dash between some things, a slash between others. Even if you look at some of the industry standards, like wire standards, you will see that there's mixed separators. So now every single row has its own separator. And you can set that here from this list. We've expanded this list quite a bit. Now you can type in anything you want to, if it's not in this list. So any symbol essentially can be added here, as long as you can type it in from your keyboard, and we'll respect that. But the key thing is that it is per field here. Now, the other great feature here is that you can have no separator. We never allowed for that before. So right at the top of the list is none. And so if I do that, you can see right there, it just gives you a little preview. If that's what your requirement is and that's what you need, you can do it now in the software. And we've had these options in previous versions too, but we also gave you the ability, if you are going to prefix the component ID, say, of an accessory with the parent, you can choose your separator there too. So complete flexibility there. The last thing we updated here for you is these values here, again, which used to contain a separator too, used to be global for all 3 entities at the time over here. You couldn't vary the number of digits in the start number between, say, products versus packages. Now you can. So if I want this to be 4 digits, and my start number to be 100, when I go to set my labor, completely independent from each other now. This is the most flexible we've ever made our component ID formats here, and it should hopefully make a lot of you happy. It's something that we were keen to get into this release because it's been such a long time request. So great, there's that. And while we're talking about drawings, I'll just quickly mention some new AutoCAD templates that we added. Let me go ahead and choose a project here and just say new AutoCAD drawing. We used to offer just plan, elevation, line, and schematic in this list, and the units were always set to inches, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was inches. So we didn't even have a metric by default template. Now, a lot of you AutoCAD users are going to create your own templates, but some of you may rely on ours. And so what we've done here is add 4 of the major standards out here, ANSI, Architectural, Canadian or CAN, and then ISO. And then for each of those, we broke them down. The metrics are either meters or millimeters. You have a choice. And then, of course, for imperial, feet or inches. And these are still independent files. So if I choose, say, inches here and go to create one, I'm going to be able to set that as a plan, elevation, line, or schematic. So you may have the scenario where your floor plan, of course, is in feet. So I want to open a plan view in feet as my scale set to feet, get my floor plan in there, start laying things out. But when I do, say, a rack elevation, when I create that drawing, I want that to be set to inches. So we give you that flexibility here now. And the other thing for each one of these standards is that the layout, or what used to be called paper space, we've preset those all for you to the proper sizes. So as an example here, I just have a quick little, that's my drawing I did. This is an ANSI one that I chose earlier in inches, but down here at the bottom, you'll see ANSI A, B, C, D, and E. And of course, the other templates would follow suit for those standards, but these are your layouts / paper space that are now all the proper size for each one of those standards. So that was something we added there. All right. Now, let's talk about some other improvements to the software that we made that Randy mentioned a little while ago. So let's look at Gantt view improvement. So we introduced the Gantt view a few releases ago. It's been quite popular with our user base. We get a lot of comments on it, mostly good, and then, of course, the requests for things to change. Some requests we knew we had to do, some we were like, great idea, let's go ahead and do that. So we added about 5 new updates to this release, and I'll just quickly show those to you. Hopefully a lot of you are using this Gantt view. I'm gonna have to pull this over here, bear with me. Okay, so here's a Gantt view I just have partially built out here. The first thing I'll mention is you can export it to Excel now. That wasn't there before. You could always print this, but printing Gantt charts isn't always fun because depending on the size of these beasts that you're building out here and the size of your print paper, you're going to have a lot of sheets that you can tape together. But you can also now just export that to Excel. So just wanted to mention that. When we released this, it was pretty rigid, meaning as soon as a task is added here in this grid or this list, that's the place it lived. It's going to be number 7. You're not moving it after the fact. We took away a lot of the capabilities of the Gantt view to lock that in because of dependencies over here. We want to make sure we had all our ducks in a row before we allowed for that. So we spent the time in this last sprint to analyze that, and we've now give you the ability to not only move existing tasks around in this list, you can also copy them, which is essentially cloning before, but you can copy big groups at a time. So just as a quick example, I probably won't actually move them, but I'm going to select these and I'm going to hit move. And when you do that, what's going to pop up is this window that shows you all of the other rows that are at the same level as the tasks selected. So you can notice that these are subtasks here. But all the other ones at this level, we only let you move at the same level for now, and then you can indent and outdent as needed once they're moved. But you would pick a row and then choose, do you want to copy these above, or copy, we're moving, move above or move below. So you have that option, and copying is the same way. So if you have some that you want to copy somewhere else, like if I made a list here for roughen and some of these are going to apply down in trim and I don't want to recreate those, you can select them and copy them, and it's the same concept here. Pick a row, copy above or copy below. So, and all of your dependencies will move and do what they're supposed to do. So we opened up that functionality for you. We also added another feature here. So if you're adding to an existing Gantt view from either the project or from a checklist, we used to always insert at today's date. It was just a default, and you didn't have a choice to change that. Everything, like I'm inserting 20 things, are all coming in at today's date, even though I've already put everything else out here where it's supposed to be in my view. I've got to now move those out to a particular date to continue on with my planning. Well, now let me just select something here. Let's just insert from checklist here. And I'm just going to pick a checklist here. Bear with me. I'm just going to grab something here. The point here is if I grab a checklist or if I'm pulling from the project, we now have these options here at the top. Once you've selected what you want to put in here, today's date's the default. You can select a date or you can add X days to the last task date that's in your current Gantt chart. Currently mine's 12/14. I could add, the day after is where I want these to start, or 2 days after. So that should save you a lot of time when you're setting up your views here. So we'll go ahead and cancel out of that. We added a mass update. So another feature that that we didn't initially release, but it's going to be a welcome one, I'm sure, because prior to this release, you would have to go, once these were added here, go over to each one and add your resources individually or predecessors. So let's take a look at the fields that you can mass update here. You can mass update predecessors, resources, and of course that's checklists, checkboxes. Mark them as milestones or update your percent complete. So save you, we're just basically time savers. I don't know how to put that any better. Mass update, it's always a time saver. So, okay, last but not least, the biggest complaint probably about the Gantt view is having to toggle between the Gantt view and SI. Well, this is SI, but tasks in SI versus the tasks in the Gantt view. So as you may or may not know, I don't know who's on the line, but you can convert any planning task here to an SI task. Those are the ones that can be published out to mobile install and now have, of course, timesheets come back down to SI from. And this is what one looks like. I just did one as an example here. You see it is an SI task. I've converted it and it's number 90 out in SI. Well, two things happened here before. You never could edit tasks directly in here once they were in SI, meaning see the full details of the SI task. Now you can. Just double click it or there's an edit task button up there. But this is going to open up the task, of course, on the wrong screen. Here it is. So this opens up the task directly in SI, so you can make modifications right here while you're in the Gantt view. I don't know if it's the inverse of that, but a feature associated with that, let me close my Gantt view, is if you have this project selected and I go to the task, here's that task here, number 90. Prior to this, if you did come to SI and open the task, you could not adjust the start and end date here. You had to go do that in the Gantt view, and then we would update the task out in SI. And again, that was us trying to make sure we had everything in line for these predecessors reacting well to changes. So we did spend a lot of time looking through the code, and they figured this out. Now you can edit that directly in here, and when you save this, you're going to be prompted to open the Gantt view and save it so we can make the adjustments out there in the Gantt view. So that used to be locked down if you in the current version. So, well, those are our Gantt improvements. While I'm here, I'm going to show you another improvement that Randy also mentioned, the scope of work fields we added. So, prior to v17, we've had a scope of work, and it's traditionally been client-facing. Most of our users use it as a client-facing document to again tell them the scope of the work when you're in the bidding process. We've had a request to allow for some internal scope of work documents and have those be available to technicians and anybody else on the project, really. So what you can see here is the ability to view 3 different types of scopes of work. So scope of work, just so you know, exists for the project. They do not exist on an individual task or service order basis. But here in this view, what I'm showing you is that you can view the client, the engineering, or the installer, those are our 2 new ones, scope of work. So if they exist, you can open those and view them here. But a really key part of this too that we did is you can publish these scopes out to mobile install. It'll PDF those and add them as one of your documents out there in mobile install. So when you're in the field, you can view these notes, if you will. Or these directions. So I'm just going to show just real quickly this publish. So it'll pop up here, and these will be, live if you happen to have these scope of works for a particular project. In this case, of course, I set it up for my example where I have all 3. But you can select which ones you want to go, publish this out to mobile install, and it's viewable to the technicians in the field. So, and just so you know, let's just pull this up. Project editor for that AutoCAD project. Here's open scope of work. This is where you're going to create those and set those. your client, your engineering, and your installer on a per project basis. And those are the rich text format files. So that was one option there. We added two options for scope of work. Okay, I've got a few more things to show you, and then we'll open up for Q&A because I know we only set this for an hour, but we'll run a little bit over. The catalog improvements, aliases, and phase mapping. So let's talk about the phase mapping first. Here, I'm just going to go to the add from DTools library, or add products from library. What we've added out here is the ability to map phases. So we know a lot of you don't use our default list, which is roughen, trim, finish, and programming. So every item you're going to download from us is going to be assigned one of these 4 phases. Some software has this programming assigned to it, but these are the ones we've always used for since I've been here a long time. Rough and trim, finish, and programming. And some users think those are a little outdated or construction-y, and no, we call it pre-wire. And then of course we have international users that don't use these terms at all. It's first fix instead of rough in, second fix for trim out, and final fit for finish. Those are common ones we've heard over the years. And so obviously you create your phase list in SI and you want that list to match well for your terminology. The problem is every time you would come download data from us, you would have to either remember to go change the phase to your custom name, or don't download the phase altogether. You have those options here not to pull that field down. And as I have here, as you can see, so no phase comes down, and then you still have to remember to go assign your custom phase, or you're not going to be charging labor for that item most likely. So what you can do now is, as I showed here just very quickly, is I've mapped this to pre-wire. So now anything I download for the DTools library that's rough-in, it will be set to pre-wire when it comes into SI. Hopefully saving you all a lot of grief and not charging labor. Another big complaint is the lack of consistency between naming of manufacturers. It's almost like they don't even know what to call themselves. But it is not just the manufacturers themselves. We have a list of manufacturers and we get that, say, directly from them, and we put that into our software. But the spreadsheet that you get from a vendor might have something different. I think, Crestron versus Crestron Electronics. Not to mention, I think Middle Atlantic Products has changed its name 3 times in the last 6 years, and it's MAP, then it's Middle Atlantic Products, then it's something else. And it's going to keep varying as your database grows and evolves. So what we've added is the ability to add, let me just minimize this, aliases. So let me just go here to the my catalog, my product explorer, and we'll just open up manufacturers so you can see that we have an aliases list here. Now, you're not limited to just one alias. I'll just open one up for edit so you can see here. You type something in here, hit add, it will go in the list. Add as many aliases as you need. Now, that's the manual way to do this, but I do want you to know that we're going to prompt you to add an alias the first time you try to, or import a spreadsheet, say, from a vendor where you have to map that manufacturer name. If you're not creating new, obviously, but if you look at this spreadsheet, you go, wait a minute, I know I have, again, Crestron in my database, and you click map, you're like, oh, well, it's spelled differently here, or, I have ink after it. You're able to just set that, and then we're going to prompt you and say, hey, do you want to set this as an alias so you don't have to do this moving forward the next time you get another update? So, while you can do it manually, we've automated the process as you are working in the software and updating your pricing to prompt you at least to say, hey, you should probably add this as an alias and save yourself some grief in the future. So that was what we did to try to help all of you, of course, manage your data, which is very important, obviously, in SI. And last but not least, I will show and talk about just the new custom fields, mainly because it's not like we just added more custom fields like we tend to do every single release. It's a new type. So the new type is hyperlink. So if I go here to custom fields and I choose manage custom fields, you'll see here when you're adding, you have the option to add up to 4 hyperlink type custom field, like a user guide, installation manual, again, because I'm on a product. But these 4 hyperlink fields, we've added them to every single entity in SI, and they are unique for each entity, meaning you have 4 that you can add to products and labor items inside of SI. You have 4 that you can add to projects, 4 to tasks, service orders. So everything in our software that has a custom field, that's available to you now. And it can be a URL, as I mentioned, kind of like user guides. It can also be network paths as well. You can always put that in there, and it's just a clickable link. That's the time saver there. And it's been kind of a long time request that we add those. So we did. And that is really my presentation on these features, the major features and changes for SI 17.